Morning. I'm Aiken County Sheriff Marty Sawyer. And we're gathered here, and I'm gathered here with all these law enforcement partners to make the hardest announcement that I've ever had to make in my 36 years career in law enforcement. I'm deeply saddened to tell you that our investigation and evidence leads us to believe that 4-year-old Javeayah Harris is deceased.
Javeayah Harris was 4 years old, 3.5 feet tall, and barely 40 pounds. She wore pink beads clipped into her braids and loved Minnie Mouse. Most days, she could be found chasing chickens around her family's coop in Beach Island, South Carolina, laughing every time they got away from her. But it was something her father, Javeayah Harris, said about her that stays with you. She's friendly. It's not a stranger danger thing with her. She didn't get that. She was just all friendly to everybody. He was describing a little girl who trusted people completely. Any people. Strangers included. She'd walk right up to someone she'd never met and start talking, because nobody had ever taught her to be afraid. Hold on to that detail. It's going to matter. Right now, it sounds like nothing more than a proud father talking about his daughter's personality. But in the days that followed, that same detail would be offered publicly as a possible explanation for the unthinkable, a reason a small child might wander off alone, into the heat, into the woods, into nowhere. It's a detail that would send 200 officers, the FBI, and helicopters equipped with infrared cameras into a search across thousands of acres of South Carolina land. Because on the night of June 30th, 2026, everything about Javeayah's ordinary, trusting little life would change in the span of 30 minutes, starting with a mother, a chicken coop, and a phone call to 911. Beach Island sits on the western edge of Aiken County, South Carolina, the kind of small, close-knit community where everybody knows everybody's business, and a missing child isn't just a headline. It's personal, for the whole town. Javeayah lived here with her parents, Mickalee Herring, 22, and Javeayah Harris, 23, near Hillsborough Street and Ridgecrest Road. At the time, Herring was 9 months pregnant, due to give birth any day. On the evening of Tuesday, June 30th, Herring says the last time she saw her daughter was around 8:15 p.m. Javeayah was outside, playing near the family's chicken coop, a spot she played at all the time. Nothing about it seemed unusual. 45 minutes passed. At 8:45 p.m., Herring called 911. Her daughter was gone. Deputies arrived quickly. Herring told them what she'd later tell reporters: Javeayah was out by the coop. Then she wasn't. The little girl was last seen wearing pink Minnie Mouse pajamas, possibly a pink Disney shirt with shorts, a pair of Crocs, and those pink beads still clipped into her hair. Within hours, this stopped being a quiet, contained search. The Aiken County Sheriff's Office issued an alert describing a 4-year-old, pediatric missing person, believed to have wandered away from her home. Deputies began going door to door through the neighborhood, working off the only account they had, a mother's word that her daughter had simply disappeared from a yard she played in every day. But one person hadn't even been there when it happened. And when he came home to find his house surrounded by flashing lights, his first thought wasn't about his daughter at all. Within an hour, this stopped being a case for local deputies alone. Sheriff Marty Sawyer mobilized his department immediately, and by morning, the FBI's Columbia Field Office and the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division were both involved. Special Agent in charge Kevin Moore and SLED's Chief Keel brought state and federal resources into a search that would grow far beyond anything Beach Island had seen before. More than 200 officers and first responders hit the ground. Search estimates ran from 3,000 acres to more than 5,000. Helicopters circled overhead. Drones scanned from above. K-9 units worked the tree lines. Roadblocks went up on every road leading in and out of the neighborhood, and deputies canvassed every house, one by one. Sheriff Sawyer, a father and grandfather himself, didn't hide what this was doing to him personally. Standing before reporters, he said the investigation hit close to home, and that his department would do everything in its power to bring Javeayah home. If you're new here, this is the kind of case we cover. Real investigations, told accurately, from the first report to the final outcome. Subscribe now so you don't miss where this one goes. Because as law enforcement expanded its footprint across Aiken County, one local church was about to become the emotional center of an entire community's hope. Bethel Baptist Church sat almost within sight of the search zone, and its pastor, Stan Adams, got the call at 1:30 in the morning. He was told his church would be needed as a staging area. Restrooms, water, a place for exhausted searchers to rest. What he hadn't expected was to spend the next several days watching his parking lot fill with patrol cars instead of his own congregation, arriving for what was supposed to be a 4th of July celebration. Adam stayed through it all, offering quiet support to the officers and agents working the case. Digital billboards donated by Elia Outdoor went up across Aiken, displaying Javeayah's photo to anyone who might recognize her. A tip line lit up with calls. For days, the entire county seemed to be holding its breath around one hope, that a 4-year-old girl had simply wandered off, and that she could still be found alive. But not everyone who knew Javeayah believed that story could be true. Before the family lived in Beach Island, they'd lived in an apartment complex in Union County. A former neighbor there, a woman identified only as Miss Young, described a very different child than the one being searched for in the woods. "She real sweet," Young said. "She would not cross the road. She won't walk by herself. She liked to hold people's hands when she walks, even when she walked to the refrigerator, she still want to hold your hand." Other former neighbors described stepping in themselves at times, feeding her, bathing her, sending her home in clean clothes, when she'd seemed, to them, unsupervised. If a 4-year-old wouldn't let go of an adult's hand to walk across her own living room, how does anyone explain her vanishing alone into the woods behind a chicken coop? That question was still hanging over Aiken County when, on July 1st, in the middle of an active search for her missing daughter, Javeayah Harris gave birth to a second child. This is one of the cases where the facts speak for themselves, and where accuracy matters more than speculation. If you want more real investigations covered this way, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. By the following day, the visible search had begun to shrink. Officials said organized search activity would be less noticeable to the public going forward, though the investigation itself was continuing. Deputies kept stopping vehicles near the search zone and conducting interviews. Chandra Cleveland, a private investigator with 38 years of law enforcement experience who had no connection to the case, explained that even when searchers disappear from view, investigators are often just getting started. Interviewing people, gathering information, building a case behind the scenes. Nobody outside a small circle of investigators knew just how right she was. On the morning of July 4th, Sheriff Sawyer called a press conference. He described it, in his 36 years in law enforcement, as the hardest announcement he had ever had to make. Sadly, the night of the 911 call on June 30th, when that call was made, it was already too late to save Javeayah, Sawyer said. Investigators now believe Javeayah Harris had been dead for at least a month before her mother ever picked up the phone. For 4 days, an entire state had searched for a missing child. What they hadn't known, what nobody watching had known, was that the search itself may have already begun far too late. What does it mean that the search the whole state believed in was already the wrong search? Sawyer's announcement didn't end there. Later that same day, both of Javeayah's parents were arrested. Javeayah Harris was charged with homicide by child abuse. Javeayah Harris was charged with homicide by child abuse and with filing a false police report. Both were booked into the Aiken County Detention Center. Sawyer said additional charges may still be coming. With her parents now in custody, one question remained louder than any other: where was Javeayah? Investigators shifted their focus outside Aiken County entirely. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division sent a helicopter to the Great Falls area of Union County, searching wooded terrain. Separately, the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office and the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources searched a body of water near State Road S20-268. As of the most recent reporting, no cause of death, motive, or exact location of death has been released, and Javeayah's body has not been recovered. The following day, both parents appeared before Magistrate Judge Ronald Thornton for bond hearings. Neither could be granted bond on the homicide charge. That authority belongs only to a circuit court, and because Herring's false report charge was tied to the same case, her bond was denied as well. Both appeared without an attorney. Both were ruled ineligible for a public defender because their income was judged too high to qualify. Their next court date is set for September 18th. If convicted, each faces a sentence of 20 years to life. The newborn baby, born in the middle of the search, has been placed with relatives. Around the same time, screenshots reportedly shared by Javeayah's uncle, June Bug, began circulating online. Described as text conversations with Herring from back in May, in which he says he asked directly about Javeayah and never received an answer. It's important to say clearly, the authenticity of these messages has not been verified by law enforcement, and investigators have not commented on them publicly. If those messages are real, what was happening inside that house in the weeks before anyone ever called 911? This case is still unfolding, and there's more we don't yet know than we do. If you want to be here when the next update comes, subscribe now. We'll be following this one closely. On the evening of July 5th, community members gathered at the Alley in Aiken for a candlelight vigil, holding light for a 4-year-old girl many of them had never met, but whose face had become impossible to forget. As it stands, no cause of death has been released. No location of death has been confirmed. No motive has been given. The search for Javeayah's remains continues outside Aiken County, and both of her parents remain in custody awaiting their next court date. What do you think really happened to Javeayah Harris in the weeks before that 911 call was ever made? Let us know in the comments below.